In the late 1980s, Japan was on top of the world. Its economy was booming, its companies were dominating global markets, and its future seemed unstoppable. 8 out of the 10 largest companies in the world were Japanese. The Rockefeller Center, a symbol of American capitalism, was owned by Japanese investors. Hollywood movies like Blade Runner even envisioned a future where Japan ruled the world. But by the early 1990s, this dream turned into a nightmare. The Japanese economy crashed, and it's been stuck in a state of stagnation ever since. What happened? How did a country that seemed poised for eternal greatness end up trapped in a cycle of deflation, low growth, and aging demographics? Following World War II, Japan was left an absolute mess. Its cities lay in ruins, factories lay utterly destroyed, and its economy was also destroyed. The fear of communism taking hold in Japan led the United States to step in. They broke up the large conglomerates that controlled everything in Japan, redistributed the land, and started investing in the reconstruction of the economy. However, the bigger shift was in the trade relations once Japan stepped onto the global market. This shift started in the 50s during the Korean War, when Japanese companies began selling their goods to the American military. During the late 1950s, the Japanese leadership adopted the policy of developing advanced sectors of the economy instead of expanding the production of the cheap textile. They brought in new technologies, increased their industrial base, and invested a lot of money in the development. The results were breathtaking. By the year 1970, Japan had risen in rank to become the world's 5th largest economy and increased GDP 5 times within the span of 20 years only. Exports were king. If Japan made it, the world bought it. Cars, electronics, machinery, Japanese manufactured products were associated with utmost quality and durability. This economic miracle didn't just transform the economy, it changed Japanese society. Citizens went from struggling to thriving, enjoying luxuries like Louis Vuitton and Prada stores in Tokyo. By the 1980s, Japan was so successful that it was seen as a threat to the US economy.
To give you an idea of just how hot the economy was, this is what you need to understand. In every single first world country, kids were walking around listening to Sony Walkmans. The dads were using Japanese camcorders. The more fuel-efficient Japanese automobiles were growing in popularity after the oil shocks of the 1970s. Japan was benefiting from all of this.
In the mid-80s, Japan was on an unprecedented path of success. But with success came carelessness. Easy access to capital and low interest rates gave rise to an economic bubble. People began investing heavily into real estate and stock markets, resulting in sky-high prices. Land became so valuable that the Imperial Palace in Tokyo was said to be worth more than all of California. But this wasn't real growth. It was a house of cards built on speculation. Banks were handing out loans with little regard for risk, and people were buying land not for its use, but for its inflated value. The government, hesitant to cool down the frenzy, kept interest rates low and let the bubble grow. The crash that occurred in the 1990s was a crisis of epic proportions. When the stock market opened back up, the Nikkei stocks had already lost $2 trillion, along with the real estate that also added up to a loss of $3 trillion in today's money. Japan was officially in a downward spiral and have never been able to recover from that crash.
The value of the land on which the Imperial Palace sits on in Tokyo was worth 4 times more than all the land in the state of California. Yes, you heard me right. At one point in time, all of the land in Japan was estimated to be worth approximately $18 trillion, which was roughly 4 times the value of all of the land in the United States at the time.
The economic crash of the 1990s exposed deep flaws in Japan's system, and the government's response only made things worse. Instead of drowning, the banks kept getting government support and stuck to the label of being called zombie banks. Despite knowing that they were insolvent because of the debts, they continued to spend, which ruined the economy as a whole. The government tried to jumpstart the economy with fiscal stimulus packages, but they were too small and poorly targeted. Most of the spending went into rural infrastructure projects that did little to boost productivity or growth. Meanwhile, urban areas, the true engines of the economy, were neglected. Towards the end of the 90s, the Bank of Japan went on a massive interest rate cut, decreasing it to about 0%. The intention was quite clear: to encourage investing, borrowing, and spending. However, rather than spending, people started saving money, resulting in a money trap situation. As a result, the country faced a situation of deflation in which prices were continuously falling, resulting in an even bigger downturn.
By December of 1989, the Japanese stock market would hit its all-time peak, 5 times higher than where it was at the beginning of the decade. It would never reach that level again, and just 8 months later, it would drop in value by nearly half. My friends, the biggest economic bubble of all time was about to burst, and it was going to be bad.
Japan's issues reached far beyond the economy as the nation was faced with a series of cultural issues as well. Businesses, banks, and regulators formed an alliance called the Iron Triangle thanks to the Japanese corporate system. A combination of these factors led to what is deemed crony capitalism, where large companies took advantage of this market and received loans, which prevented them from going bankrupt. Another issue that posed a challenge was the company culture. In Japan, it's a norm to value long hours and seniority over creativity and efficiency. There are several employees that overwork themselves just for the sake of showing loyalty towards the organization. Due to this, Japan faces a daunting task of integrating itself in the current global market. If you're liking this video so far, make sure to subscribe to the channel. If economic stagnation and cultural rigidity weren't enough, Japan also faces one of the most severe demographic crises in the world. Its population is aging rapidly, with over 25% of people now aged 65 or older. At the same time, birth rates have plummeted, and the working age population has declined by more than 10% since 1995. Japan hasn't shifted towards actively promoting immigration, giving birth to a dreadful population crisis. Young people have become increasingly less attractive to give birth because of long work hours paired with a heightened cost of living, making the situation worse. One of the biggest lessons from Japan's downfall is that debt is never truly free. The country's over-reliance on low interest rates and easy credit created an environment ripe for dangerous bubbles, especially in real estate and stocks. The speculative frenzy, fueled by cheap money, eventually led to a catastrophic collapse that reverberates to this day. Another critical mistake was viewing land as an investment rather than a productive asset. During the height of Japan's bubble, land prices skyrocketed to absurd levels, not because of its utility, but due to unchecked speculation. This fixation diverted resources away from innovation and productivity, the true drivers of sustainable economic growth. Japan also clung to failing businesses rather than letting them fail. Zombie companies and insolvent banks were propped up with cheap loans and government support, stifling competition and dragging the economy into inefficiency. Without the creative destruction that allows stronger, innovative businesses to thrive, the economy stagnated. Culturally, Japan's refusal to adapt its corporate systems added another layer to its struggles. The rigid hierarchical work culture that prioritized long hours and loyalty over efficiency and innovation left the country ill-prepared to compete in a rapidly changing global economy. Finally, Japan underestimated the importance of demographics. An aging population and declining birth rates created a shrinking workforce, compounded by a reluctance to embrace immigration. This demographic time bomb has put immense pressure on the economy, limiting growth and innovation. As of 2024, Japan's economy is still struggling. Wages haven't recovered to their 1989 levels, and the stock market is worth the same as it was 40 years ago. Innovation has slowed, and the population continues to shrink. So what do you think? Can Japan rise again, or is its best chapter already written? Let us know in the comment section below, and make sure to like the video. Thanks for watching.